Hey guys, how's it going? It's Danconia and welcome back to the Overwatch League Roundup 2020 Houston Outlaws preview. Now, as you can probably hear, my voice is still completely trash, so do bear with me, but we are going to crack on with the previews no matter what. And today we have the Houston Outlaws to take a look at. Now, the Houston Outlaws have been one of the most interesting teams in this off-season, so we actually have got quite a bit to talk about, unfortunate for me, huh? But without further ado, let's look at the history of the Houston Outlaws. Houston Outlaws came into the inaugural season as like a mid-table team-ish, and they did finish 7th in the inaugural season. They were a team that kind of upset quite a few of the big boys, especially the London Spitfire, who went on to win that season. They actually were the bogey team of the London Spitfire that season, so the Houston Outlaws have a pedigree of being able to upset the big teams in the league. But moving on to 2019, and things weren't as smooth for the Houston Outlaws, and it wasn't necessarily the roster's fault, it wasn't necessarily the coach's fault. The organisation behind them, which was Optic, were in a lot of difficulties in terms of finances, and we all know, and I did videos about the Optic problems, and luckily Houston Outlaws found a solution to that, and that was Optic being sold to the parent company of Los Angeles Valiant, that was Immortals. But that was an issue because one organisation cannot own two Overwatch League teams. That's against the rules of the Overwatch League. So the Houston Outlaws had to find another buyer, another owner, in pretty swift fashion. And that has happened now. They have found new ownership. And with that, they've also been able to have a financial boost, which has helped them to make improvements during this off-season, which I think were pretty critical, because otherwise we were looking at Houston being one of the worst teams in the league this season. But that is almost certainly not the case unless something goes critically wrong with the Outlaws before the start of the season or during the season. So, without further ado, can they improve on their 16th place finish in 2019? I really think they can. I really think they can. They were improving towards the end of last season, once they had the news of, the takeover and stuff like that, and they have got through the rough patch. And this year, some of the signings that the Houston Outlaws have made, I really think can make a massive difference to this team. A massive difference. Some of the best signings out of all of the bottom half of the league, shall we say, from 2019. But without further ado, let's take a look at their roster. Let's start with the people that have left the Houston Outlaws during this off-season. So, first is the South Korean DPS, Arhan. Arhan is actually now retired as a player. He's going to be a coach for T1, which is the academy team of the Philadelphia Fusion, which plays in South Korea. That should be really interesting for Arhan, but he won't be at the Houston Outlaws next season. Then we have Banny, the support player, the Canadian support player. He is also retired and has become a coach at the Washington Justice. Jake, we kind of expected him to retire, and he has. He's gone on to become a caster at the Overwatch League. And then there's Coolmat. Coolmat, this is a really interesting story and a really, this is a sensational story in terms of selflessness. So Coolmat obviously was an off-tank player for the Outlaws, well known for his diva. We all know about the please kill Coolmat meme. He won't be playing for the Houston Outlaws as a player next season. He is part of their organisation now. And this shift has happened because he wasn't probably going to get all that much playtime with the signings that the Outlaws have made. And he's contracted all through this year. But he agreed to take a significant pay cut and become part of the organisation of the Outlaws to see out his contract so that they could sign another player that would round out their roster really well. And I think that's an incredible story of selflessness from Coolmat. He could have just said, no, hey, I've got a contract, I'm going to see this out, you're going to pay me what I'm owed. But because he obviously loves the Houston Outlaws, he loves the team, he took that pay cut so that the Outlaws could have a more well-rounded roster, because apparently they are at 100% of their budget right now, which in some respects is a bit worrying, but they have made some marquee signings, so I can kind of understand it. They have made some big name signings in this off-season. So let's get to that then. So the retained roster is Lynxer, Spree, Muma, Boink, Raucus, Dante. So those have been retained from either the inaugural season or last season. Dante came in from the San Francisco Shock, obviously. And then we have the signings. They have made 5 signings so far, and I'm not expecting the Outlaws to make any more signings, considering the news about Coolmat. So, the first signing was Hydration from the LA Gladiators. That is a massive signing. I was astonished when I saw this signing. I thought, Houston, man, that is such a great signing. I fully expected Hydration to be an LA Gladiators player in 2020, and he's now with the Outlaws. This is a massive coup for the Outlaws to get Hydration, because Hydration doesn't just offer that really good DPS play. We saw him playing Orisa for the Gladiators at the end of last season. He's a very flexible player. I think he could be invaluable to the Houston Outlaws coming into this 2020 season. Honestly, it's a fantastic pickup. Then we have Blase. Blase was a DPS player for the Boston Uprising and the Gladiators Legion before that. Blase, I fully believe that Blase wasn't able to show his full colours at the Boston Uprising last season, but to be honest, with the way the Boston Uprising were playing, I don't think anyone could show their full colours. He is very good on that projectile DPS heroes. He's also got a bit of a roadhog in his back pocket, but we're not expecting too much flex from DPS to tank. So I think Blase's a good pickup for the Houston Outlaws. I don't think he's a starting pickup, but definitely a really good squad depth pickup. And then we have Rappel. Rappel is the South Korean support player coming from Vancouver Titans. This is such a good pickup. Like, this is a ridiculously good pickup. Rappel wasn't a starter for Vancouver Titans last year, often playing second fiddle to Twilight and Slime, but I still think Rappel is a really, really good player. He comes from the pedigree of Element Mystique, which is a really good team in South Korea, and Rappel will come with an incredible amount of experience with the Vancouver Titans during their last season, which way they did finish second, obviously, to the San Francisco Shock. So I think this is a really, really good pickup for the Houston Outlaws. And the question is, will this like spice up the Outlaws support line? Because, you know, we traditionally think of Boink and Raucus, and they lost Banny. So will this spice up the support line for the Houston Outlaws? Will they start perhaps dropping Boink? Because I can't imagine they would drop Raucus, but maybe they are thinking of that now. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what the starting lineup for the Houston Outlaws will be come the start of the season. But then we move on and we have another incredibly marquee signing that I honestly would never have expected, and this is Meko. So Meko surprised us all by announcing he was leaving the NYXL late last year, and everyone was like, wow, why is Meko leaving the NYXL? That's a really big move. He was the only person really out of the main NYXL roster to leave, and we were kind of really surprised because Meko and Mano were kind of like a tank duo that you always thought of in the Overwatch League. Well, now that's split up, and Meko is now part of the Houston Outlaws, and that's a massive pickup. Meko has been with that core New York Excelsior roster since the LW Blue days in 2016. So this is a real step out for Meko, and I think it's just because he simply wants to try something different. He wants to expand his horizons. He's going to a roster that will speak mainly English, because mainly the Houston Outlaws roster is American. And yeah, this will be very interesting. This must almost certainly be the off-tank pick for the Houston Outlaws now. So, man, this is a really big pickup for the Houston Outlaws, and if they can get him into the squad and have his synergy working with the likes of Muma, because it's almost certain that Muma is going to be the main tank rolling out for the Houston Outlaws, it could be a defining signing. Like, a massive signing for the Houston Outlaws, and without a doubt, this will improve the Houston Outlaws. It's one of the most surprising signings all season, right up there with the likes of Chipsa, but Chipsa was surprising for a completely different reason. So let's not get onto that. But lastly, we have the signing that Cormat made way for, and this is Jekse. Jekse from obviously the Seoul Dynasty. So this is another support player. Lucio Merciana. Jekse, you know, again, couldn't shine at the Seoul Dynasty. Not a lot of people could. Seoul Dynasty had an up and down season last season, but I think this is another really good signing for Jekse, because what I think the Outlaws are trying to do is they're trying to go down the mixed roster route. They've brought in 3 Koreans now to go alongside the mostly American roster they've got, and this could work. This really could work, and when I look at this roster, it is by far much more powerful than what it was last season, and perhaps even what it was in the inaugural season. But you never know what these rosters are going to do until you actually get them on the stage and actually playing. So it'll be interesting to see how this roster kind of weaves in together. But what could be absolutely massive for this team to work is what Houston Outlaws have done in their back room. Their coaching, their organization, because there's been changes there as well, and it's massive to how this roster is going to work. So, obviously we covered the Colmat thing. We'll look at who's gone from the roster at the organization of the Houston Outlaws. So, first of all, we have the videographer Wheels. He's gone. Jay, the COO, is gone. Mendo Kuzai, the content creator, he's retired. H3CZ has left the CEO role and has gone to co-CEO at NRG Esports. Hyung Wo, the assistant coach, he has left, and Tae Rong, the head coach, has left as well. So they've all gone, allowing the Houston Outlaws to move in a whole new bunch of staff and streamers and content creators and organization people. So Cormat's on the organization. They've now got Violet the streamer as well. But they moved in Hureg. Hureg retired from play at the Vancouver Titans. We'll go over that when we get to the Vancouver Titans as well. And he is now an assistant coach for the Houston Outlaws. Obviously coming from Vancouver Titans means that he can mold Rappel into this squad quite well. Then we've got Dream coming in as an assistant coach. Again, another great pickup for Montreal Rebellion. Montreal Rebellion, the academy team of Toronto Defiant in NA Contenders. And then we have Clockwork. Clockwork's been there, obviously, who was a player for the Houston Outlaws. But the main pickup for the Houston Outlaws is Harsha. Harsha was a coach at the Vancouver Titans. Harsha is American. But he will be able to, I think he's going to be able to mold this team together. Mold this new Korean influence for the Houston Outlaws into this American base they've got. And honestly, I think this could be a team to really watch out for, because if Harsha can get this team working, then it has got all the potential to be right up there. And I mean right up there, like a playoff team. It has all the potential for it. It just depends whether, and I say this with a lot of teams, especially, certain teams that are lower down in the league, can they realize the potential of the players they've got? Because they've got players that are really skilled. Hydration, Dante, Raucus, Linksa, Meko, Repel, Jexa. They're all really skilled players. All really, really skilled players. And all they need to do is to just wind that together and create a really, really good team synergy and roster. And this could be one of the, not want to say one of the top teams in the league, because I don't think it can compete with the top teams in the league right now, but it can certainly be miles better than it has been last year. So this is a really promising season for the Houston Outlaws. Going into the season though, they will start off in week 2 at the Battle of Brotherly Love in Philadelphia. They will not be playing Philadelphia though, because they will start off against the Florida Mayhem, and then they will play the Washington Justice. Now this is going to be really interesting, because we don't know where the Florida Mayhem are going to lie right now, because they've got that, all Korean roster, but that roster where we don't know where it's going to sit. Houston Outlaws, we don't know where they're going to sit. Washington Justice, if they carry on the form they showed at the end of last season, they are going to be miles improved compared to what they were for the majority of last season. And then we have week 3 for the Houston Outlaws, where they will make the hop to Washington, where they will take on the Boston Uprising and the New York Excelsior. So Boston Uprising, that's got to be a must-win for the Houston Outlaws. To be quite honest, I will say Boston Uprising is a must-win for pretty much every team in the league right now, if you don't want to be bottom. I'm being harsh, but it's true, in my opinion. So, and then they got New York Excelsior, and that's to be a big teller, because Houston Outlaws used to be the team that could go toe-to-toe with the big teams in the league and lose out just slightly in the inaugural season. Can they go back to being that team that, really gives the top teams in the league a hard time? Because if they can, then it's looking like a really good season for the Houston Outlaws. But I think that's about it for Houston today. Next up, I believe we go to our inaugural season. We go to London Spitfire. Oh boy, that's going to be an interesting one. And probably a long one. London Spitfire are just not the same team that they were. Let's be completely honest about this. They might as well have changed their colours, because they're just not the London Spitfire anymore. But anyway, that's for that. But for now, I will leave it here for this one. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you liked it, give it a like, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next video. See you then.